Las Vegas, Nevada, August 18th, 2022, 3:02 a.m. The Mirage Crown Casino hums with the sounds of 5,000 slot machines, the clicking of roulette wheels, the shuffle of cards at blackjack tables, where people are losing money they can't afford to lose. Outside, the strip glows like a neon artery, pumping false hope into the desert night. Inside, the air conditioning keeps everything at exactly 68 degrees, the temperature where people gamble longest without feeling uncomfortable. In the cashier's cage on the main floor, behind reinforced glass thick enough to stop bullets, surrounded by cameras that never blink, a man stands at his station doing what he's done for 11 years, exchanging cash for chips, processing payouts, following the same procedures he could perform in his sleep. His name is Liam Carter, 39 years old, average height, brown hair receding at the temples, wire-rimmed glasses that make him look bookish and harmless. He wears the casino's standard uniform, burgundy vest over white shirt, black pants, name tag that says Liam, Senior Cashier, 11 years of service. To the customers sliding bills through the slot in the glass, he's invisible. Just another casino employee, interchangeable with the dozen other cashiers working the cage. To his co-workers, he's reliable but forgettable. Shows up on time, does his job, goes home, never causes drama. To the security guards who've worked alongside him for years, he's part of the furniture. So familiar they've stopped really seeing him. But behind Liam's calm, polite face is something the casino never detected. A human recording device, someone who's spent 11 years memorizing every shift rotation, every vault code, every security habit, every tiny flaw in the system. Tonight at exactly 3:02 a.m., when the casino's security system performs its weekly synchronization and the cameras go dark for 4 minutes, Liam Carter will use everything he's memorized to execute the most disciplined inside job in Las Vegas history. In 4 minutes, he'll steal $74 million, and then he'll vanish as completely as if he'd never existed. Before we dive into the story of the invisible man who remembered everything, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Hit that hype button to boost this episode to more true crime fans. Drop a comment below telling me what city or country you're watching from. I'm always curious where viewers are joining from. This is the story of Liam Carter and the 4 minutes that changed everything. Liam James Carter was born in 1983 in Henderson, Nevada, a suburb of Las Vegas where people who work in the casinos live because they can't afford to live on the Strip. His father, James Carter, was a blackjack dealer at the Sands. His mother, Michelle, was a cocktail waitress at Caesar's Palace. They worked opposite shifts, James days, Michelle nights, which meant Liam and his younger sister grew up seeing their parents pass each other in doorways, exhausted, smelling like cigarette smoke and broken dreams. Liam was always quiet, said his sister, Amy Carter Walsh, now 40 and living in Arizona. Even as a kid, he'd just watch. Watch our parents argue about money, watch the neighbors get evicted, watch how hard people worked and how little they got for it. He didn't talk much, but you could tell he was always thinking. Liam graduated from basic high school in 2001 with decent grades but no particular ambitions. He started community college, studying business administration, but dropped out after 1 semester when his father died of a heart attack at age 52, collapsed right at the blackjack table during a shift, dead before the ambulance arrived. Dad spent 30 years dealing cards, Liam said years later in one of his few recorded interviews. 30 years making sure the house won. And what did he get? Minimum wage plus tips, no pension, a funeral the casino didn't help pay for. That's when I learned what we were worth to them. Liam needed work. His mother's cocktail waitress salary wasn't enough to support the family. In 2002, at age 19, he applied for an entry-level cashier position at the newly opened Mirage Crown Casino, a 5-star resort on the Strip, all gold trim and marble floors and crystal chandeliers. They hired him to work the graveyard shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., 4 days a week. The job was simple. Sit behind bulletproof glass, exchange cash for chips, process payouts, maintain accurate counts, follow security protocols. It required attention to detail, honesty, and the ability to stay alert during hours when most people's brains shut down. Liam was perfect for it. He never made mistakes, said Patricia Gomez, who supervised the cashier cage from 2004 to 2015. Never came up short on his counts, never had customer complaints, never broke protocol. In 11 years, I can't remember him calling in sick even once. He was exactly the kind of employee casinos love. Reliable, quiet, invisible. Liam worked the same shift for 11 years, Wednesday through Saturday, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. He'd arrive 15 minutes early, clock in precisely on time, work his 8-hour shift, and leave. No socializing with coworkers, no after-work drinks, no casino employee gossip. He lived in a small apartment in Henderson, a one-bedroom place that cost $850 a month. He drove a 2006 Toyota Corolla with 140,000 miles on it. He had no girlfriend, no close friends, no social media presence, no hobbies that anyone knew about. I lived in the same building as Liam for 6 years, said his former neighbor, David Torres. I'd see him maybe twice a month, coming or going. He'd nod, say, "Hey," and that was it. I couldn't even tell you what his voice sounded like. He was just there, like a shadow. But inside his apartment, Liam did something nobody knew about. He kept notebooks, dozens of them, filled with observations written in tiny, precise handwriting. He documented everything. Which guards worked which shifts, how long they stayed at their posts before getting lazy, which supervisors changed vault codes, and when, how the camera system cycled through their feeds, when maintenance performed system updates. He tracked patterns with the obsessive attention of someone conducting scientific research. Guard rotation, Wednesday, Marcus arrives 10:47, 13 minutes early, relieves Davis at 11:02, 2 min late. Marcus checks phone 11:14, 11:31, 11:52, AVG 18-minute intervals. Attention span degrades after midnight. Vault audit Thursday, Supervisor Chen enters at 2:47 a.m., duration 23-26 minutes. Secondary keypad unlocked at 2:51 for testing protocol, remains accessible until 2:55 before autolock. System sync begins 3:02 a.m., cameras freeze 3:02:36, exactly 4 min. Page after page, year after year, Liam documented the casino's rhythms like a naturalist studying animal behavior. He didn't plan to steal anything, not at first. The notebooks were just something to keep his mind occupied during the long, boring hours behind the cage. A way to stay alert by giving himself a game. See how much you can notice, how many patterns you can find. But over time, the patterns revealed something dangerous. The casino's security wasn't as sophisticated as people believed. It was just routine, repeated so often that it became predictable. And predictable systems could be exploited by someone patient enough to memorize every detail. The moment that changed everything happened on a Wednesday night in March 2020, during the first year of the COVID-19 pandemic, when casinos were operating at reduced capacity and everyone was distracted by masks and sanitizer protocols and fear. Liam was working his usual shift when, at exactly 3:02 a.m., the monitors in the cashier's cage went dark. Not completely dark. They still glowed with a blue screen that said, "Signal reacquiring. Please wait." This happened every Wednesday during the weekly security system synchronization, when all the casino's computers reconnected to the main server to update security protocols and backup data. Liam had seen it hundreds of times, but this time, he noticed something he'd never consciously registered before. The cameras in the cashier's cage, the ones that recorded every transaction, every movement, every second, weren't just displaying a loading screen. They'd actually stopped recording. Liam could tell because of a tiny detail. There was a small red LED light on each camera that blinked every 3 seconds when actively recording. During the sync, the LEDs went solid red, no blinking. 4 minutes. Every Wednesday at 3:02 a.m., the cameras stopped recording for exactly 4 minutes while the system rebooted. Liam looked at the security guards stationed near the cage. They hadn't moved, hadn't reacted to the cameras going offline. They assumed, as everyone did, that backup systems were still watching. But Liam had been observing these guards for 8 years. He knew their habits, their routines, their blind spots. Marcus, the guard on the left, checked his phone every 18 minutes on average. At 3:04 a.m., right in the middle of the 4-minute window, Marcus would be looking at his phone. Davis, the guard on the right, always did a perimeter walk at 3:05 a.m., leaving the cage area unmonitored for 90 seconds. During those 4 minutes every Wednesday, the most heavily surveilled area in the casino was actually blind. Liam felt his heart rate increase slightly, not from fear or excitement, but from the sudden clarity of recognition. Like solving a math problem you'd been working on for years and finally seeing the answer. Over the next 2 months, he tested his theory. During the Wednesday sync, he deliberately stepped slightly out of his normal position, not enough to be suspicious, just a foot to the left or right. Then he'd review the security footage the next day. Senior cashiers had access to review their own station footage for dispute resolution. The footage showed nothing, just the blue signal reacquiring screen for 4 minutes, then normal recording resuming at 3:06 a.m. Those 4 minutes were a blind spot, a hole in the casino's supposedly perfect surveillance. But a blind spot alone wasn't useful. Liam couldn't just grab money from his cashier drawer. There were counts, logs, protocols. Any discrepancy would be caught immediately. Then in July 2020, he noticed something else. Every Thursday morning at 2:47 a.m., the shift supervisor, a woman named Janet Chen, who'd worked at the casino for 23 years, performed a weekly vault audit. This was a routine security procedure. Verify that all codes were working, test the backup access systems, ensure the vault mechanisms function properly. The audit required temporarily unlocking the secondary vault keypad, a backup access system that was normally disabled. For testing purposes, Chen would unlock it, verify it worked, then let it auto-lock after the test cycle completed. The secondary keypad remained unlocked for approximately 4 minutes before the automatic security relock engaged. 4 minutes. The same 4 minutes as the Wednesday security sync. Liam spent 6 months cross-referencing his notebooks, verifying the timing, checking every variable. Thursday, 2:47 a.m. Chen begins vault audit. Thursday, 2:51 a.m. Secondary keypad unlocked for testing. Thursday, 2:55 a.m. Secondary keypad still unlocked. Auto-lock pending. Wednesday, Thursday overlap at 3:02 a.m. Security sync begins. Cameras go offline for 4 minutes. If he could access the vault area during the sync, while the cameras were blind, while the secondary keypad was unlocked during its testing window. Liam sat in his apartment on a Thursday morning after his shift, staring at his notebooks spread across the kitchen table, and realized he'd mapped out a perfect heist without meaning to. 4 minutes when the cameras couldn't see. 4 minutes when a backup vault access was temporarily available. 4 minutes when he could move money in a way that would look like a system glitch rather than theft. He told himself he was just thinking theoretically, just a mental exercise. He'd never actually do it, but he kept refining the plan anyway. For 2 years, from July 2020 to August 2022, Liam refined his plan with the same meticulous attention he brought to counting chips and reconciling ledgers. He didn't write anything down anymore. Too risky. Every detail had to stay in his head, memorized with the same precision he used for shift schedules, vault codes, and security rotations. His brain became a database of information that would never be discovered in a search warrant because it existed only in neurons and synapses. The plan had to account for dozens of variables, each one critical. Timing. The heist had to occur on a Thursday morning at exactly 3:02 a.m., when both the security sync and the vault audit testing window overlapped. That specific combination only happened once per week, and missing it meant waiting another 7 days. Liam couldn't risk multiple attempts, one shot, perfectly executed, or nothing. Access. He needed a legitimate reason to be in the vault area during the sync. As a senior cashier with 11 years of tenure, he had access to the outer vault for processing high-value chip transfers and special transactions. But timing it perfectly with Chen's audit routine, with the camera blind spot, with the guard rotations, that required choreography down to the second. The money. He couldn't just steal cash from the main vault. That was counted multiple times per day, with running balances that would show discrepancies within hours. But temporary transfer funds, money staged for Federal Reserve pickups or inter-casino transfers, sat in secondary holding for 24-48 hours before being logged into permanent records. During that window, the money existed in a kind of limbo, counted but not yet fully accounted for in the casino's daily operating balance. If he could reclassify that money as being in reconciliation, it would buy him crucial hours before anyone noticed it was missing. The container. He couldn't walk out with duffel bags or personal luggage. It had to look legitimate, part of normal casino operations. Federal Reserve transfer containers, heavy-duty sealed crates designed for moving large amounts of cash, moved through the casino regularly. Security guards, loading dock workers. Everyone was so accustomed to seeing those containers that they'd become invisible. Perfect. The exit. He'd have to move $74 million in cash, roughly 140 pounds depending on bill denominations, from the vault to his car in less than 6 minutes without attracting any attention whatsoever. The route had to be memorized, every door, every turn, every camera angle. The disappearance. Once the theft was discovered, he'd have maybe 24 hours before they identified him as the suspect. After that, every law enforcement agency in North America would be looking for him. He needed to be untraceable by then, across an international border, using cash only, leaving no digital trail. Liam spent months studying the specific date he'd target. Thursday, August 18, 2022. He chose this date for very specific reasons. Mid-August was the end of summer tourist season, when Las Vegas casinos processed their highest cash volumes. Conventions, bachelor parties, tourists trying to squeeze in one last vacation before school started. All of it meant maximum cash flow through the casino. Thursday specifically because that's when Federal Reserve pickups were scheduled for Friday mornings, meaning the largest cash accumulation would be staged in the vault overnight, Wednesday into Thursday. The third Thursday of August historically showed the highest single-day cash reserves based on patterns Liam had observed over 11 years of counting and processing. He calculated, based on past revenue patterns, current tourist projections, and scheduled high-roller events, that approximately $74 million in cash would be staged in secondary holding that specific night. $74 million. Sitting in a vault with a secondary keypad that would be temporarily unlocked for testing, during a 4-minute window when cameras couldn't record. Guarded by people who'd worked with Liam so long, they'd stopped really seeing him. He memorized the exact sequence, practicing it mentally every single day for 2 years. 3:01:30 a.m. Begin end of shift closing procedures at Cashier Station 7. Lock drawer, verify counts, complete paperwork. All routine actions he'd performed 4 through 15 times. 3:01:45 a.m. Clock out using the terminal exactly as scheduled. Senior cashiers always left at 3:02 a.m. after completing their closing. Nothing suspicious. 3:01:52 a.m. Enter the vault staging area using senior cashier credentials. Show badge to guard Marcus. Claim he's verifying a large chip transfer that needs processing before morning shift. Completely normal. He'd done similar verifications dozens of times. 3:02 a.m. Security sync begins. Every camera in the casino goes to blue signal reacquiring screen. Recording stops. 4 minutes of invisibility begin. 3:02:14 a.m. Access secondary vault using the temporarily unlocked keypad. Password 749263. Memorized from watching Chen input it during testing protocols. The keypad would have been unlocked at 2:51 a.m. for Chen's audit. It wouldn't auto-lock until 2:55 a.m. under normal circumstances, but the system sync would reset the timer, leaving it accessible until 3:06 a.m. when the security protocol re-engaged. 3:02:30 a.m. Access the vault computer terminal. Log in using Chen's credentials. Username, jchenmgr. Password, M1 Crown 2018. Memorized by observing her typing patterns for 18 months. Navigate to transfer status management. Locate containers FR0847 through FR0851. Reclassify all 5 as external reconciliation hold. Paperwork discrepancy pending. This status code would freeze them in the system, preventing them from appearing in the morning count. The casino's accounting software would think the money was in administrative limbo, waiting for document corrections. Common enough occurrence that nobody would immediately investigate. 3:03:15 a.m. Load the containers onto the rolling transfer cart. 5 containers, each weighing approximately 45 pounds depending on bill denominations. Total weight, roughly 220 pounds. The cart itself could handle 500 pounds, used regularly for moving multiple containers. 90 seconds to load if you worked efficiently, but not so fast that you appeared rushed or nervous. 4:45 a.m. Exit the vault area, pulling the loaded cart. Marcus would still be on his phone. Average attention span showed he'd be distracted until 3:07 a.m. Davis would be completing his perimeter walk, returning to position at 3:06:15 a.m. 3:05:47 a.m. Cameras come back online, showing Liam Carter, senior cashier with 11 years of perfect service record, processing a routine Federal Reserve transfer. Nothing in his body language, his pace, or his actions would suggest anything other than normal duty. 3:06:30 a.m. Reach the loading dock. The overnight shipping supervisor, Thomas Kellerman, would be there. Liam had worked with Thomas for 7 years. They had a professional but distant relationship. Enough familiarity that Thomas wouldn't question Liam's presence, not enough closeness that Thomas would remember details later. 3:45 a.m. Load the 5 containers into his 2006 Toyota Corolla. 2 in the trunk would require removing the spare tire to fit both. 2 in the back seat, 1 in the front passenger seat. The car's suspension would visibly sag, 1,640 pounds of cash, plus the weight of the containers. But at 3:06 a.m., in a dimly lit parking garage, who would notice? 3:07:15 a.m., drive out of the employee parking garage. Wave to the exit guard, same guard he'd waved to 4,015 times before. Exit onto Flamingo Road, merge carefully into early morning traffic, drive exactly the speed limit. Look like someone going home after a normal shift. 3:08:01 a.m., merge onto Interstate 15 South. Direction, California. Then, disappear. The plan was perfect on paper, but Liam knew that execution was where most criminals failed. You could have a perfect plan and still get caught because your hands shook at the wrong moment, because you hesitated when you should have acted, because you missed a detail you hadn't considered. So he practiced. Not physically, he couldn't risk that, but mentally, obsessively, with the discipline of someone preparing for an Olympic event. Every Thursday morning after his shift ended at 7 a.m., Liam would drive home, close the blinds in his apartment, and spend 2 hours mentally rehearsing the sequence. Close his eyes and visualize every step, every movement, every second of the 4-minute window. He'd imagine the weight of the containers, the sound of the cartwheels on the floor, the feeling of his badge in his hand as he swiped through security doors. He timed everything with stopwatch precision, walking from Cashier Station 7 to the vault area at normal pace. 17 seconds. Entering the secondary vault access code. 4 seconds. Practice made it automatic. Loading a 45-pound container onto the cart. 22 seconds the first time. 18 seconds after you'd done it once and knew the ergonomics. Wheeling the loaded cart from vault to loading dock. 1 minute, 47 seconds using the most efficient route, accounting for 2 security doors that required badge swipes. By August 2022, Liam had mentally rehearsed the heist 104 times, once per week for 2 years. He could execute it in his sleep. Every movement was automatic, every decision predetermined, every contingency planned for. He studied escape routes with the same obsessive attention. Once he left Las Vegas with $74 million, he'd need to disappear completely. His research told him that most criminals got caught because they either spent the money conspicuously or they tried to hide within the United States where every transaction left a digital footprint. Liam's plan was different. He'd go to ground immediately, cross into Mexico within 12 hours, then disappear into Central America where $74 million in cash could buy anonymity that credit cards and wire transfers never could. He studied border crossings, memorized the busiest pedestrian crossing times, when overworked border agents process people as quickly as possible, researched countries with no extradition treaties with the United States. In the final month before the heist, Liam began his preparation checklist. July 18, 2022. Obtained a fake passport under the name Michael Stevens from a document forger in North Las Vegas. Cost $8,000 cash. The passport would pass casual inspection, but not deep database checks. Good enough for crossing into Mexico, not good enough for flying internationally. July 25, 2022, purchased a waterproof duffel bag large enough to hold approximately $10 million in cash, which he transferred from the Federal Reserve containers before abandoning his car. The containers themselves were too conspicuous and had RFID tracking chips embedded in the plastic. August 10, 2022, began closing out his life. Told his landlord Patricia Wong that he'd received a job opportunity in Phoenix and would be moving mid-August. Paid final rent. Took nothing from the apartment except clothes and personal items that fit in one suitcase. August 15, 2022, transferred his mother Michelle to a better assisted living facility. She'd developed Alzheimer's and didn't recognize him anymore. But he made sure she'd be cared for. Paid 6 months in advance using his savings. He'd never see her again, but at least she'd be comfortable. August 17, 2022, withdrew his entire savings, $47,000 accumulated over 11 years of living cheaply, in cash. Closed all bank accounts. Canceled his cell phone contract. Eliminated every digital connection to Liam Carter. August 17th evening, wrote 3 letters. One to his sister Amy, apologizing for disappearing and asking her to take care of their mother. One to his mother, even though she wouldn't remember him, telling her he loved her. One to his former supervisor, Patricia Gomez, thanking her for 11 years of fair treatment. He didn't mail them. Too risky. They'd be found in his apartment after he was gone. Part of the breadcrumb trail investigators would follow to understand who Liam Carter had been. August 18th, 2022, 10 a.m. Liam woke up after sleeping restlessly for 5 hours. He ate a simple breakfast, toast and coffee, the same breakfast he'd eaten for 11 years. He packed his car with 1 suitcase, the waterproof duffel, and $47,000 in cash distributed in sealed envelopes throughout his luggage. He looked around his apartment one last time, this small, anonymous space where he'd lived alone for 11 years, planning the heist that would end Liam Carter forever. Then he drove to work for the last time. August 18, 2022. 10:47 p.m. Liam parked in his usual spot in the employee garage, Section D, Row 7, Space 23, the same space he'd parked in for 11 years because arriving early meant he could always get it. He walked through the employee entrance, nodded to the security guard who barely looked up, swiped his badge, and made his way to the locker room, where he changed into his uniform. Burgundy vest, white shirt, black pants, name tag. He looked at himself in the mirror. Same face he'd seen for 11 years, unremarkable and forgettable. Tonight, that face would vanish forever. At 11 p.m., Liam clocked in and took his position at Cashier Station 7, behind the bulletproof glass, surrounded by cameras. The shift passed like every other shift he'd worked. Process transactions, exchange cash for chips, maintain accurate counts, smile politely at customers who don't see you. Watch the security guards rotate. Watch the supervisors make their rounds. Watch the casino's rhythm play out exactly as it had for 4,015 nights. At 2:47 a.m., Janet Chen arrived for the weekly vault audit, just as she had every Thursday for the past 5 years. "Morning, Janet," Liam said as she passed his station. "Morning, Liam. Same old, same old." "Same old," he agreed. At 2:51 a.m., Chen unlocked the secondary vault keypad for testing. Liam heard the beep through the wall. He knew every sound in this building. At 3 a.m., Liam began his end-of-shift closing procedures, counting his drawer, preparing to hand off to the morning cashier. At 3:01 a.m., he logged a large chip transaction that needed vault verification, completely routine for a senior cashier. At 3:01:45 a.m., he clocked out exactly as planned. At 3:01:52 a.m., he entered the vault staging area, showing his credentials to the guard Marcus, who barely glanced up from his phone. "Big transfer?" Marcus asked. "Yeah, high roller cashing out. Need to verify the bands." Marcus nodded, already looking back at his phone. At 3:02 a.m., every monitor in the casino went blue. Signal reacquiring. The cameras stopped blinking red. 4 minutes began. Liam moved to the secondary vault door with a calm that surprised him. No racing heart, no shaking hands, just the mechanical precision of someone performing a memorized routine. He entered the code on the secondary keypad, 749263. Codes Chen had tested earlier and left temporarily accessible. The vault clicked open. Inside, stacked on reinforced shelving, were the Federal Reserve transfer containers. Heavy plastic crates sealed with security bands, each containing bundles of sorted, counted cash waiting for Friday morning's pickup. The manifests were clipped to each container. Liam scanned them quickly, doing math in his head that he'd already calculated 100 times. Container FR 0847, $12.4 million. Container FR 0848, $15.7 million. Container FR 0849, $18.2 million. Container FR 0850, $14.9 million. Container FR 0851, $12.8 million total, $74 million. Liam accessed the Vault computer terminal, designed for supervisors to log transfer status changes. Using Chen's credentials, he'd memorized them months ago by watching her type. He reclassified all 5 containers as external reconciliation hold, paperwork discrepancy. This status code would prevent the containers from appearing in tomorrow's morning count. The system would think they were in limbo, waiting for paperwork corrections. By the time anyone noticed, Liam would be gone. He loaded the first container onto the rolling transfer cart. Heavy, about 40 pounds of cash. Then the second, third, fourth, fifth. The whole process took 2 minutes and 17 seconds. At 3:04:19 a.m., Liam wheeled the cart out of the vault, past Marcus, who was still on his phone, past Davis, who was making his perimeter walk, down the corridor toward the loading dock. At 3:05:47 a.m., the security cameras came back online, showing normal activity. Liam Carter, senior cashier with 11 years of service, processing a routine Federal Reserve transfer exactly the way he'd done hundreds of times before. At 3:06:30 a.m., Liam reached the loading dock. The overnight shipping supervisor, a man named Thomas who'd worked there for 9 years, nodded at him. Late transfer? Yeah, paperwork got delayed. Fed's picking up early morning instead of afternoon. Want help loading? Nah, I got it. Thanks, though. Liam loaded the 5 containers into his Corolla, the back seat, the trunk, front passenger seat. The car's suspension sagged with the weight. At 3:07:15 a.m., Liam Carter drove out of the Mirage Crown Casino employee parking garage for the last time. At 3:08 a.m., he merged onto Interstate 15 heading south toward California. Behind him, the casino continued operating exactly as it always had. The cameras recorded normal activity. The logs showed normal transactions. Nothing appeared wrong. He'd stolen $74 million, and nobody had noticed. Friday, August 19, 2022. 9:17 a.m. Janet Chen arrived for her morning shift and began her routine verification of overnight activities, the same checklist she'd followed for 23 years. Review the transfer logs, confirm that all vault protocols had been followed. Check that containers staged for Federal Reserve pickup were ready and accounted for. She logged into the vault management system and pulled up the overnight activity report. That's when she noticed the status flags on her screen, red text against the white background. Reconciliation hold paperwork pending. 5 containers, FR 0847 through FR 0851, were marked with this status. That didn't make sense. These containers had been verified, counted, and sealed Wednesday afternoon by 2 separate supervisors. There shouldn't be any paperwork discrepancies. The money had been sitting in secondary vault for 36 hours, waiting for Federal Reserve pickup scheduled for 11 a.m. Chen felt the first flutter of concern. Not panic yet, just the professional unease of someone who'd learned to trust their instincts. She picked up her desk phone and called the Federal Reserve Coordination Office in downtown Las Vegas. A woman answered, "Fed Coordination, this is Maria." "Hi, Maria, this is Janet Chen at Mirage Crown. I'm showing a reconciliation hold status on containers 0847 through 0851. Can you verify there's a paperwork issue on your end?" "Hold on, let me check." Chen heard the clicking of a keyboard. After a moment, "I'm not showing any holds in our system. Those containers are scheduled for pickup at 11 a.m. today. Status shows ready for transfer, paperwork complete and verified." The flutter of concern became something colder. "You're sure? Because our system is showing they've been flagged for reconciliation." "Positive. I'm looking at the manifest right now. Signed off Wednesday at 4:15 p.m. by supervisors Chen and Rodriguez. Everything looks good on our end. Chen thanked her, hung up, and sat staring at her computer screen. System discrepancies like this usually meant data entry errors, duplicate status codes, software glitches. Nothing serious. But Janet Chen had been doing this job for 23 years, had processed thousands of transfers, and her instincts were screaming that something was very wrong. She grabbed her security badge and walked quickly to the vault staging area, a secure room adjacent to the main vault where outgoing transfers were held before pickup. The staging area was empty except for 3 containers scheduled for afternoon transfer. The 5 Federal Reserve containers that should have been there, that had to be there, representing $74 million in cash, were gone. Chen felt ice in her stomach. She walked to the secondary vault, swiped her badge, entered her code. The heavy door clicked open. Inside, the shelving where the containers should have been stored showed empty spaces, outlined in dust where the crates had sat. She checked the main vault computer terminal, pulling up the detailed transfer logs. They showed the 5 containers had been reclassified at 3:02:47 a.m. during the security sync window. Status changed to reconciliation hold, action logged under her credentials. User, J. Chen, MNGR. But Janet Chen hadn't been anywhere near the vault at 3:02 a.m. She'd completed her weekly audit by 2:55 a.m., locked the secondary keypad, and been in her office doing paperwork when the security sync happened. She'd clocked out at 3:18 a.m. and driven home. Someone had used her credentials. Someone had accessed the vault during the 4-minute sync window when cameras were offline. At 9:31 a.m., Janet Chen called casino security, her voice carefully controlled but her hands shaking as she held the phone. "This is Janet Chen in Vault Operations. We have a problem. I need security in the vault area immediately." At 9:45 a.m., Robert Martinez, head of casino security and a former FBI agent with 20 years of experience, was reviewing the overnight security footage in the surveillance control room. 24 monitors showed recorded footage from Thursday night, cycling through different camera angles. Martinez, a meticulous man in his mid-50s with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing, controlled the playback personally. He started at 2:30 a.m. and watched at 2x speed. 2:47 a.m. Janet Chen enters vault area for weekly audit, exactly as scheduled. 2:51 a.m. Chen accesses secondary vault, conducts testing protocol, exits at 2:54 a.m. 3:01 a.m. Normal late-night activity. Guards at their posts, a few cashiers closing their stations. 3:52 a.m. Liam Carter, senior cashier, enters the vault corridor carrying his standard work clipboard. Badge swipe logged. Guard Marcus barely looks up from his phone. 3:02 a.m. All monitors go to blue signal reacquiring screen. The weekly security sync. 3:06 a.m. Cameras come back online. Liam Carter is wheeling a transfer cart loaded with 5 Federal Reserve containers toward the loading dock. Nothing unusual in his body language. Moving at normal pace, not rushed, not nervous. 3:06 a.m. Liam reaches loading dock, interacts briefly with night supervisor Thomas Kellerman. Kellerman helps briefly, then returns to his desk. Liam loads containers into his vehicle. 3:07:15 a.m. Liam's 2006 Toyota Corolla exits the employee garage. Security footage shows the car's suspension visibly sagging with weight, but the exit guard, who'd seen Liam leave 4,015 times before, waves without really looking. Martinez watched the footage 3 times, then pulled up Liam's personnel file. Liam Carter, age 39. Senior cashier, 11 years of service, spotless record, 0 disciplinary actions, never called in sick. Performance reviews consistently rated exceeds expectations. Last background check, 20 Howison 20, cleared with no flags. The perfect employee, Martinez muttered to himself, which is exactly what made him dangerous. At 10:02 a.m., Martinez called his director, Stephen Park, with 3 words: "We've been robbed." The investigation moved with the efficiency of a well-oiled machine once they realized money was missing. By 10:30 a.m., the FBI had been notified. Special Agent David Park, no relation to the casino director, arrived with a team of 4 investigators at 11:15 a.m. "Walk me through exactly what happened," Park said, sitting across from Janet Chen in a conference room. Chen explained the reconciliation hold flags, the missing containers, the credentials used to access the vault. "Someone logged in as me at 3:02 a.m. and reclassified $74 million as being an administrative hold. But I was home asleep by then." "How many people know your login credentials?" "Theoretically, nobody, but..." Chen hesitated. "I use the same password I've used for 4 years. Anyone who watched me type it often enough could figure it out. And the vault area isn't exactly private. Dozens of employees pass through every night." "Who had access to the secondary vault?" "During the audit testing window? Anyone with senior credentials and knowledge of the protocol. Maybe 20 people total. But only someone who understood the exact timing of when the keypad would be unlocked could have taken advantage of it." Park pulled out his tablet and showed Chen the surveillance footage of Liam Carter loading the containers. "Do you recognize this employee?" Chen felt her face go pale. "That's Liam. Liam Carter. He's worked here 11 years. I've worked with him on hundreds of transactions. He was one of our most reliable people." "When's the last time you saw him?" "Thursday night, maybe 11:30 p.m. He was at his cashier station. We said good morning to each other. He seemed completely normal." By 2 p.m., FBI agents had arrived at Liam's apartment. The landlord, Patricia Wong, let them in. The apartment was empty, not ransacked, not hurriedly abandoned, just empty, as if the occupant had planned their departure meticulously. The furniture remained, it had come with the apartment, but every personal item was gone. No clothes in the closet, no toiletries in the bathroom, no food in the refrigerator. "He told me 2 weeks ago he got a job offer in Phoenix," Wong explained to the agents. "Said he'd be moving mid-August, paid his final rent, gave proper notice. I thought it was legitimate." In the bedroom, agents found 3 handwritten letters on the kitchen table, unsealed, waiting to be discovered. One addressed to Amy, Liam's sister. One addressed to Mom, Michelle Carter, currently in assisted living. One addressed to Patricia Gomez, Liam's former supervisor. None of the letters confessed to theft. They were just goodbyes, apologetic, grateful, vague about where he was going or why. "These were meant to be found," Agent Park said. "He wanted us to know he'd planned this, wanted us to see how thoroughly he'd thought it through." Agents pulled Liam's financial records. His bank accounts, savings and checking at Wells Fargo, had been closed on August 17th at 2:37 p.m. Total balance withdrawn, $47,182.65, all in cash. His cell phone, a basic flip phone on a prepaid plan, showed its last activity at 7:14 a.m. on August 18th. The phone pinged a cell tower near Barstow, California, then went permanently offline, likely destroyed. His 2006 Toyota Corolla, license plate 7XH491, had been captured by traffic cameras. 4:37 a.m., I-15 south near Barstow, California. 6:52 a.m., I-15 south approaching San Diego area, 7:03 a.m. Surface streets in San Diego, heading toward Tijuana border crossing. After that, nothing. "He had a head start," Park said. "At least 6 hours before we even knew money was missing, maybe 10 hours before we identified him as the suspect. That's an eternity in a manhunt." FBI issued a federal warrant for Liam's arrest at 3:47 p.m. on August 19th. Charges of theft, interstate transportation of stolen property, wire fraud, and computer fraud. If convicted on all counts, he faced up to 25 years in federal prison. But first they had to find him. The manhunt expanded rapidly. By evening on August 19th, Liam's photo was distributed to every law enforcement agency in the Southwest. TSA, Border Patrol, Highway Patrol, local police departments. Mexican authorities were notified. Interpol was contacted. FBI analysts began building a profile. Liam Carter, age 39, no criminal history, no known associates in criminal enterprises, no previous indications of illegal activity. Quiet, methodical, patient. Likely acting alone. High intelligence, extraordinary attention to detail, capable of long-term planning. "This isn't some junkie who robbed a convenience store on impulse," Park told his team. "This is someone who spent years planning the perfect crime, every move calculated, every contingency considered. He's not going to make stupid mistakes. The investigation traced Liam's movements as far as the evidence allowed. August 18, 3:08 a.m. Left Mirage Crown Casino in his Corolla, loaded with approximately 1,740 pounds of cash in 5 Federal Reserve containers. August 18, 4:37 a.m. Passed through Barstow, California on I-15 South. Traffic cameras showed his vehicle, suspension visibly sagging, moving at exactly the speed limit. August 18, 7:14 a.m. Cell phone last ping near San Diego, then signal lost permanently. August 18, 1:10 a.m. Estimated. Arrived in San Diego area, likely transferred cash from Federal Reserve containers, which had RFID tracking, into generic luggage or bags. August 18th, 11:07 a.m. Border crossing camera at San Isidro. Pedestrian crossing showed a man matching Liam's description, crossing into Tijuana, Mexico on foot. Backpack visible. No large luggage. Moving calmly, not rushed. He crossed on foot during the busiest time of day, Park explained. Border agents process hundreds of people per hour during mid-morning. They're looking for drugs and weapons, not someone carrying a backpack full of cash. Even if they'd searched him, cash isn't illegal to carry across borders if you declare it. Did Liam declare $74 million in cash? The border crossing records showed no declaration form filed under his name. But by then, Liam Carter might not have been using his real name. The Corolla was found 3 days later in a long-term parking lot in Tijuana, 2 miles from the border crossing. The car had been wiped clean, no fingerprints, no DNA, no evidence beyond the vehicle itself. The Federal Reserve containers were in the trunk, empty, RFID chips intact but useless now. He knew we'd trace the containers, Park said. He transferred the money into something untraceable before abandoning the car. Probably duffel bags or waterproof luggage. $74 million in $100 bills would fill 8 or 9 large duffel bags. Heavy but manageable if you're willing to make multiple trips or pay people to help without asking questions. The FBI worked with Mexican authorities to trace Liam's movements south of the border, but the trail went cold almost immediately. Mexico's less comprehensive surveillance infrastructure, combined with Liam's likely use of cash for all transactions, made tracking nearly impossible. There were unconfirmed sightings over the following weeks. A man matching Liam's description at a bus station in Guadalajara. Someone who looked like him staying at a cheap hotel in Mexico City. A possible sighting in Guatemala City 3 weeks after the theft. But nothing concrete. No photos, no confirmed identification, no paper trail. Liam did everything right, Park admitted months later. He used the Mexico border because it's porous enough to cross without intense scrutiny, but organized enough that he wouldn't be robbed by criminals on the other side. He carried cash because cash leaves no digital trail. He disappeared during a weekday morning when border traffic was highest. And most importantly, he had no connections. No girlfriend to call, no buddies to brag to, no family he'd try to contact. He cut every tie before he ran. That's the mark of someone who planned this perfectly. The $74 million was never recovered, not a single dollar. The Mirage Crown Casino's security overhaul cost $12 million and took 8 months to complete. They eliminated the Wednesday sync vulnerability, redesigned their vault protocols, implemented continuous recording with no blackout windows, and added biometric authentication to all high-security areas. Liam exposed weaknesses we didn't know existed, said Robert Martinez. He spent 11 years studying our systems, memorizing our routines, finding every vulnerability. He knew our security better than we did. Janet Chen retired 6 months after the heist. I keep thinking about all those Thursday mornings I did the vault audit with Liam working 50 feet away. He was watching me, learning my routine, using the protocols I followed to rob us. I followed every rule, did everything right, and it still wasn't enough. The FBI investigation remains open but inactive. Liam Carter is wanted on federal charges of theft, wire fraud, and interstate transportation of stolen property. If caught, he faces up to 20 years in prison, but most investigators believe he'll never be caught. Liam didn't leave a trail, Agent Park explained. No communications we can intercept, no financial transactions we can trace, no accomplices who might inform. He planned to disappear, and he executed that plan as perfectly as he executed the heist. There have been unconfirmed sightings over the years. A man matching Liam's description in Panama City in 2023, another in Costa Rica in 2024. Someone thought they saw him in Portugal, someone else in Thailand, but nothing confirmed. No photos, no evidence, just shadows and rumors. The thing about Liam, said his former neighbor David Torres, is that he was always invisible. He lived among us for years and nobody really knew him. He was just a face you'd pass in the parking lot. So if he's out there somewhere, living under a different name in some small town where nobody asks questions, we'd never know. He's had practice being nobody.